Hey there guys, and welcome back. So we're going to be diving into more 28 years later content here on the channel, and we're going to be talking about the box office closing numbers. How much money has this movie made in its whole theatrical run? How well has it done for itself? And what can we expect going forward in the franchise? So let's dive into this article here. It comes to us from coinmoy.com. I have to say, I've never heard of this website. I've never used it before, but this article is quite well written. I had a brief kind of scan through it. So let's go through. Let's talk about the box office numbers, and ultimately let's talk about what's going to be happening next with this franchise as well. So 28 years later, box office closing numbers. Danny Boyle's zombie sequel scares up 145.4 million globally. Eyes, paid video on demand, and streaming next. So yeah, remember, this movie had to make roughly 150 million to break even. It's the best performing movie in the franchise by far, so they're going to be very, very happy with that. And the fact that it made 145.4 million, and we have streaming sales, we have licensing sales, we have merchandise, we have all that kind of extra kind of ancillary markets to go as well. So by the time it's made all those sales on streaming, DVDs, Blu-rays, all that stuff, clothing, it should easily make its money back on its box office revenue. So all in all, it's going to be pretty successful here for this movie, I would say. So Danny Boyle's 28 years later wraps its theatrical run with strong box office numbers and heads to streaming ahead of its sequel release. I hope that this becomes like one of those cult classics on streaming where a lot of people who didn't see it at the cinema, I hope a lot of people kind of get onto it on streaming, and like it does really well with the sales, with the rentals, DVDs, Blu-rays, and I hope a lot of people kind of catch onto it and word of mouth spreads. A lot of movies tend to do that, so let's hope that it can do that with this movie here. So Danny Boyle wrapped up the theatrical run of 28 years later after a month, and now the film is headed to paid video on demand and eventually streaming, where it might attract more eyes. Yeah, like we were just talking about. Hopefully it gets that cult following going. The third part of the long-running zombie saga did not exactly explode at the box office, but still ended with a solid 145 million worldwide. So if we quickly jump over here to thenumbers.com, some really good financial information here. So domestically it made 69 million, internationally it made 76, and then worldwide it made 145. So if we go down here, it should tell us production budget was 60 million, which we already knew. Worldwide box office is 2.4 times the production budget. And like I've been saying ad nauseum on the channel, usually the rule of thumb, it needs to make 2.5 times its production budget in order to be profitable. So it's just under the profitability range, but still it's by far the biggest movie in the franchise when it comes to box office. Plus, like we already said, we got the ancillary market of DVDs, Blu-rays, merchandising, and once you factor all that in, it should do pretty damn well for itself. So let's go back over to the article here. So, where were we? 145 million worldwide, which makes it one of the highest grossing horror films ever, and the third biggest hit of Boyle's career. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to horror movies, we have to remember it's not like big DC or Marvel projects that make billions of dollars, Star Wars movies as well. When we're talking about these kind of low-grade B kind of horror films, this kind of, budget, the budget and the total box office revenue is a lot smaller. 145 million for a horror movie like this is very, very respectable in its niche when it comes to horror films. So let's keep going down here. We have those emotional pictures there where Dr. Ian Kelson is passing the skull of his mum, and then Spike climbs up the bone temple and places the skull on top. It's a pretty sad scene, to be honest. I mean, bless the little kid. I mean, he's only young, and having to do that at a young age would be pretty traumatizing for any kid, really. Okay, so 28 years later, box office versus expectations. So Boyle's most successful film remains Slumdog Millionaire, which crossed the 375 million mark and bagged top Oscar. Yesterday, released in 2019, made more than 150 million globally, but ended up being branded as a failure due to studio math tricks. That might also be the case with 28 years later, especially when it was reported 60 million budget hanging over it, reports Collider. So, 28 years later, box office summary. Domestic 68.9, international 76.5, worldwide collection 145.4. I know we already went through those figures, but it doesn't hurt to do it again quickly. So, when it comes to the highest grossing horror movies of all time, 28 years later stands at the 70th place. Just below 2023's horror hit Evil Dead Rise, which absolutely incredible film, by the way. Do check that movie out if you haven't seen it. We've got more Evil Dead on the way. I am going to be making a video about the production update on the next Evil Dead movie, so make sure you check that out tomorrow, guys. Which has earned 147 million. Okay, So the expectations related to the movie were higher before it was even released, and it did pull in half of what early projections had hoped for. Sony, already low on the franchise fuel, now looks towards the next installment due in January, with fingers crossed. The upcoming sequel, 28 years later, The Bone Temple, will be followed by another part, which is already written but waiting for a green light. Yeah, like I've already said on the channel so many times, I have no idea what kind of figure Sony is looking for to greenlight that third movie. Are they going to wait for the box office run of the second movie to be over with before they greenlight the third movie? We'll have to wait and see exactly when they give the green light, what the kind of the criteria is that they're looking at, and ultimately we'll have to wait and see if we get that great news of that third movie at some point. So 28 years later surpasses The Exorcism of Emily Rose at the global box office. Despite its performance, 28 years later managed to leapfrog several horror staples, recently inching past a total global take of The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which brought in 145.1 million since its 2005 release. The movie boasting a strong cast, including the likes of Jennifer Carpenter, who played the titular character, and Laura Linney, who was based on a real-life possession of a young German woman named Anneliese Michel. The movie was shot only with a small budget of 20 million, but managed to pull off big numbers despite mixed critical response and low 45% Rotten Tomato score. So interestingly, The Exorcism of Emily Rose also stands just a place lower than 28 years later in the all-time highest grossing horror movie list. Scott Derrickson, the director behind Emily Rose, moved on to helm Sinister, The Black Phone, and the upcoming Black Phone 2. And guys, another recommendation, Black Phone. If you have not seen Black Phone, really creepy, eerie movie. I recommend checking it out. Great little horror film. And also Black Phone 2 is coming soon as well, so that looks pretty good. Danny Boyle's post-apocalyptic saga, which began with 28 days later and continued with 28 weeks later, has found renewed relevance decades later. With 28 years later set to arrive on streaming platforms soon, its legacy may only continue to grow as new audiences discover the franchise. Yeah, my hope for the franchise going forward, I hope that once it hits streaming, it becomes a cult classic. A lot of people discover it for the first time on streaming. People watch it, they get really excited again about the franchise. Then when The Bone Temple comes out in January, all that hype surrounding the streaming of 28 years later, people are really excited. They've seen that movie, they loved it, and then a lot more people go to see The Bone Temple, and it ups the box office. I hope that's the case, and I really, really hope that we see that box office go up for that second 28 years later movie. I hope The Bone Temple earns around 200, an extra 50 million. That would be great. We want to see that trajectory go up. We want Sony to see that people are interested in the franchise, and let's hope that's the case. But there we go, guys. So closing numbers on the global box office of 28 years later, 145.4 million. Is this where you expected it to be? Did you expect it to be lower? Did you expect it to be higher? Whatever your thoughts are here, guys, about the franchise, about the box office, or anything else you want to say or comment or ask a question about, do let me know down in the comment section. As always, thanks so much for being here. Make sure you hit the like button before you leave. Consider becoming a subscriber to help support the content on the channel. I would really, really appreciate that. And hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with more 28 years later and movie news that we have going on the channel in the near future. And with that down, guys, as always, I will see you in the next video.